Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. My name is Sarah, and I work with the Living Archives Project, where we are collecting stories of how COVID-19 impacted various communities in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County. Today, wow, what is today? Today is June 13th. I cannot believe it. We're already in the summertime. Yeah. It's amazing. So, Kimberly, would you introduce yourself?
Yes. I'm Kimberly Owen. I have 3 children, and I've been married for 27 years. I have brown hair, I have brown eyes, and I have like a golden complexion. And I'm 5 foot. 5'1".
5'1".
Yeah, 5'1". I'm gonna count that.
And you're wearing such beautiful earrings.
Thank
today.
you so much. This is a Dakota lady who handmade these, and so yes.
Wow, they're stunning.
Yes, thank you.
Stunning.
Yeah.
So, Kimberly, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am a mother of 3, a 23-year-old, a 21-year-old, and a 18-year-old.
Wow.
And I am married to my beautiful husband over 28 years, I don't know. He is from the Chickahominy tribe, and I am from the Lumbee tribe.
Okay.
So, yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit, because I am not from North Carolina, so please excuse my ignorance, but tell me a little bit about the Lumbee tribe.
Yeah, it is one of the largest tribes east of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
Gosh, there is over 60,000 in the particular tribe. It's probably grown even more. We are mainly located in a Pembroke Lumberton area, which is 2.5 hours east of here.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So what brought you to Mecklenburg County area?
Yes, I always wanted to see what it was like outside of my hometown. Okay. And so I transferred into UNC Charlotte. I did a local college, UNC Pembroke, and I wanted to explore a little bit more outside of my, the area that I grew up in. Yeah. So I love this area. Yeah. It's my home.
That's amazing. Yeah. So did you raise your kids in this area too?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes. And you said their ages 23, 18,
and 21.
21.
Yes.
Okay, wow. So those are some good ages. They're all in college now, I'm assuming. Or almost all.
Yes, they're all. Well, my 18-year-old, she will be going to college in another year. Okay. She has one more year. She's a senior this year. So, and then hopefully we'll have one out by the time she arrives into her freshman year. Hopefully.
So is she graduating now? Or
no, she has one more year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about what was it like being a mother of college students and a high school student these last 3 years? Because I can imagine the challenges.
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's really probably mentally, emotionally, has really been a journey that really has stretched me and my family. My son was serving at the time. He was in Kuwait. Okay. He was in the Air Force Reserve, so he was away during COVID. But my son, who was a senior, he missed a lot of his senior year, and then my daughter not being able to be in school as well. So it was just a lot of emotions going on inside the home.
I can imagine. Yeah. So your son, who was a senior at the time, does that mean he didn't have a graduation?
Yeah, well, he had a graduation, but it was just really, and we look back and we're like, what was everybody thinking? But we were in our cars outside, could not get out of our cars, and it was at a field, a soccer field, football field, and he would walk up and get his diploma, and while we watched in the car. Okay. So it was like, we could have gotten out of the car, but that was kind of odd.
Yeah.
So he was able to walk on the field, get his diploma, and walk off the field one by one. So while we were in our car watching.
So were the cars parked around?
Yeah, it was like in a parking lot, and so and we had to stay in the car. We couldn't get out.
Yeah. Except for
even with a mask.
Except for your son.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So, you think back and you're like, God, that was kind of strange. Yeah, like we could have gotten out, had our mask on, and still had a closer look, than being in your cars. Like, there he is, and they had a screen, a big screen, so we could actually see him more.
I'm about to say that would be kind of challenging.
Yeah, it was. It was.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
and especially that was pretty early on when COVID came, so it was still very unknown. Is that correct?
Very unknown. Yeah, exactly. Because things changed after that, even more. It was progressing
for sure. So tell me, before we started, we did this hand map activity together. Is there anything from your hand map that stuck out to you or that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, I think. I think during that time when you ask, what are the 3 things that come to your mind about COVID, and it was a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was strange. Disbelief. And then what isolation really does to someone when they're isolated, even with family.
Yeah.
And then thinking, I was fortunate to have a family that I was isolating with.
Yeah.
Versus someone who was single. Yeah. Not married or didn't have family nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that experience for you? What did that feel like for you?
Well, the first couple of weeks it was awesome because I was like, okay, this is kind of like vacation.
Yeah.
But also too, I'm a mental health therapist, so there was was doing Zoom, which was so foreign to me because I'm such a mental health is more of like one-on-one in a room, being intimate with that person versus through a computer, through more of that kind of feeling. So that was, doing it at home and having to have a quiet area, not really having an office set up for me and not being in my office. Professionally, that's how it affected me. As far as, my children and the family, it was hard because, we had to cancel some, like vacations, Christmas. What does that look like being around my parents? What does that look like taking the vaccine and not taking the vaccine? And also, too, the news, watching the news and the impact and being influenced so much by that. And so, and also raising children who really were at a critical time of growth and development.
Yeah.
So it was just like, wow, this is overwhelming. And I'm also trying to really, my husband and I get settled and finding out this new way of doing a career at home.
So do you own your own private practice for counseling?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
And so what was that like? Were you operating in person at the time and then you had to completely restructure?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was sharing an office with other therapists at the time. And I think it really kind of had to stretch me because we had different viewpoints of how that would work. So the owner at the time of the office, or the one that was over the lease, we could not go in and shut the door and do Zoom. And I thought that was very odd, that we couldn't even go into our office. She said, you know what, I really don't want anyone in there and expose anyone to anything, even with a mask. So I think it really propelled me, or it really energized me to start my own private practice. So that was a turning point for my career, to really say, you know what, I'm gonna create an environment that works best for me. But yeah, so I had to stay at home and do Zoom, and I would do it outside. I would do it in my bedroom. I would do it but because I had to share an office with my husband.
Yeah.
And I think it's really hard to separate, especially as a mother, that responsibility of making sure the kids were okay and trying to work at home. And I'm kind of somewhat on the cusp of an extrovert, introvert, so I like getting out. And so if I don't have that opportunity, I can find that I get somewhat anxious and maybe some. I never consider myself a depressed person, but we all experience depression in some kind of way. And I think, so it was kind of, I started feeling a little bit of that depression.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow.
Yeah.
And I bet, so you said you shared your home office space with your husband, but your kids were also in high
Yeah,
school, so they were probably doing Zoom.
Yes, they were doing Zoom, and then and then the complaining of doing Zoom,
yes.
and like, oh, this sucks, and la la la, and it's like I understand, but at the time that was our only option, and so you question everything. You're questioning everything as a mother, as a individual, as a person who. Yeah, that has their own business or not, or work for it. It's just you question everything, and people have so many different opinions and stances, and it's like, wow. Like I think it also gave me an opportunity to really figure that out too, like to figure out like what do I believe in, like what is my stance, because there was so much going on.
Yeah,
even
so kind of like doing a deeper dive into yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did you, if you don't mind sharing, what did you find in that time?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I think, with the news being our only source of information, realizing that, people share what they want to share and what suits them best. And so I think I had to cut that. I had to realize I have to really maybe not spend as much time watching the news and listening to others, but really going into my faith, my what I call, a lot of people would call inner tuition. I call it the Holy Spirit. Just really starting listening to the Holy Spirit and really going to my faith. And I put that down on, that was one of my influences, was my faith, and really shutting down other noises, that were, saying some very confusing things to me.
It is a confusing thing.
Yeah, it was.
For sure.
Yeah.
I felt the same way. So I feel it.
Yeah.
And during that time, I know because you're such a expert in mental health, what were some coping strategies that you yourself found helped you other than turning to faith? Yeah.
Well, I found that I was leaning to some unhealthy coping mechanisms, to be transparent. Maybe eating some things that weren't so healthy. Maybe drinking wine a little bit more than I should. Sorry, kids, if you watch it, but I'm a truth teller. But in realizing, that was causing even more of that depression, and so I had to come to realize, what am I doing? What am I doing? These emotions, that were kind of numbing me out a little bit. Yes. So I think I remember that time. It's like, okay, let's start walking a little bit. Let's start getting outside more. Let's start talking, maybe with some friends a little bit more, maybe start reading something and it's inspiring other than listening and watching the television. Also, there was a lot going on with George Floyd at the time where they had, we witnessed, an abuse and also the riots that were taking place after that, and also having to acknowledge maybe some, as an American Indian, what was some of those wounded parts that I had never even explored myself as a person of color. I kind of, just really put those in a place that I accepted that it was there, but really didn't realize the pain until I really started really witnessing people who, especially of color, being mistreated like that. I didn't realize maybe I had a connection to that as well. So that kind of that was coming up for me a lot during COVID. When you mentioned, I don't even think I put that down, but as we're talking and I'm processing this, I think that was a pivotal point for me to dive into those wounded parts, especially around race and how it affected me.
So tell me about that journey, because that's a very important journey.
I think so too, because I always, I knew I was very proud of being American Indian, and I married someone also who was American Indian, very much a big part of our culture. We go to powwows. We're very invested in our culture and always trying to learn and teach others about who we are. But I really never realized or really tapped into how much I wanted to assimilate. Though, even though I was American Indian, I really realized I wanted to assimilate to more of the mainstream culture, which at the time was more of the white culture. Just, hey, I want to assimilate. I know that I'm American Indian, but I want to just kind of put that second, and just kind of go along with that, and not really capture my diversity as much as I should, or what I felt like I could do. I never felt like I could. And I think that's what's really changed since COVID. I really, I feel more confident in expressing that, because that has given us more of a platform, the Native people. We have more of a platform because of the circumstance, not, that we witnessed with George Floyd. I think a lot of things came out of that, good and bad, being able to really see it live was really like, wow. And really being able to come alongside of my allies, my friends that are not of color, and really supporting me and encouraging me to really show my diversity more. And so in my private practice, I really I display a lot of that. So art, music, and just some of the healing pathways like drumming and dancing. So that's really what came out of, I think, looking at this, which I love this, being more adventurous in my diversity.
I love that. So stepping into your identity fuller.
Yes.
I love that. How, as someone who you mentioned, you married also a Native American, and tell me, or how does that impact your kids? How have you seen your kids get impacted in this, during this whole season? Yes.
I think that I don't think they really, like I said, we moved from my hometown. I mean, I moved from my hometown and never really, thought about raising my children in my hometown and my husband's hometown as well, which is, he comes from a very small community of natives that live together, very close knit. They don't live on a reservation, and we didn't live on a reservation, but we are very much embedded around Native people and community. Our community is American Indian. So when we left those communities, we had to really kind of find our way, being the only one. We're the only American Indian. And my kids, went to predominantly, white schools where there was mostly, they stood out as being Native and people of color here in Davidson, where we're filming right now. But I think during that time and witnessing things on the news and and a lot of the talk with what happened with George Floyd, I think we came together and we, as a family, and had a lot of healthy discussions around that. And when we shared stories, I think it's sharing stories with our kids and going a little bit deeper that maybe we didn't talk about. And then finding out their stories and how it was to be a person of color, mainly in a white dominant school where they were the only ones. So they shared some stories with us that we did not know and how it affected them. And so it was it's hard to hear, but it was therapeutic, because anytime you tell your story, especially if it's good and bad, there's healing in that.
There is. 100%. Is there a story that you feel comfortable sharing with us about maybe your experience or your family's experience?
Well, I think that as far as American Indian people, and I only speak for myself, and I would say I would speak for most Native people, is that we just want to be included. We just want to be known and seen and recognized for who we are and the beauty that we bring, that we have brought to this land, and we want to be acknowledged for that. and we just don't want to be represented in a way that it's false.
Yeah.
And I think, just realizing and just going along with it, I think for all these years, for me personally, I think we're just like, we'll go along with it. A lot of the movies that, that headline American Indians, this really doesn't represent who we are. I mean, we're so diverse. There's over 550 different tribes here in the United States, and so we're all different in a unique way. We all look different, and the movie industry did not really portray us that way, and it was more savaged, more of like wild, uneducated, or really not people that were wise and sage and that had a lot of knowledge to give, and even in so many areas, just so many areas. And but my particular tribe is very much progressive and hold many different degrees and companies and corporations, and they're spread out across the United States doing amazing things.
That's amazing.
And so we're finding that we're getting recognized more and more. I mean, we have a long ways to go, but my husband and I both are seeing progress. My husband started a Native American organization within his company at the time, Genentech, which is huge, one of the biggest biotech companies in the United States.
Wow.
And so we got to really do some neat things. He was able to travel and speak about Native people in the math and science area. So there's just, we saw some major progress there in the last 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's amazing.
It is amazing. I think it is.
Yeah, I think so too.
I mean, we're getting American Indian people elected in Congress, and we're Indigenous women are being able to serve as leaders. I've been able to ask to speak on behalf of mental health and how that is how can we incorporate Indigenous ways of healing. So I don't know. I see progression. That's what I see.
Yeah, I love that.
I really do. I really do.
It's really encouraging.
It is encouraging, and that's why I want to encourage my children. That's what we talk about. Yes, we talk about the past. We talk about, the stories where my mother and father could not go into certain restaurants, could not go into restrooms, could not drink from certain water fountains because they were Native. They couldn't get married in North Carolina because they were Native. So if you were to marry, especially outside of your race, you could not. You would have to go to another state. Wow. So there, we've shared those stories, but we also share the stories of like, gosh, you can accomplish anything you want to if you work hard and you really, if you set a goal, you can achieve that goal. Yeah. But it's always good to know your past, to your history, to know where you're going. Yeah. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
I think you have to find balance, and you have to come to our past is our past, but you can't run away from your past. You have to heal.
And bring it forward and say, this is what we went through, but God, it's made us stronger, and it's I put fortitude, like a strength of moving forward. And I think with mental health right now, we're seeing a lot of suicide and anxiousness and depression. But I'm wondering if we're talking a lot about the past and a lot about the darkness, but are we talking about the light? And are we talking more about possibilities and opportunities? Because when we turn on the television, or we check the news, or we check depending on what news you do watch, it can really be depressing. So when we if we're listening and creating thoughts that are dark and hopeless, then the feeling will become a depression or become an anxiousness. I mean, it will.
Yeah. I mean, if we just focus on the negativity, we become that focus, And
I think historically, Native people generationally have battled a lot.
Yeah.
And so that is intergenerational, and that can be passed down from generation to generation. Epigenetics, that, these are part, we have, this is in our genes, shame and not feeling like we're enough and feeling like we are people that have a lot to give to this land. That is what has been ingrained even by the boarding schools that a lot of Native people were put into, and they had to cut their hair, they had to stop their language, they had to assimilate.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, when you feel like you've forced assimilation, it creates a sense of shame, and it's passed on from generation to generation, and you don't even realize it. I think, it was passed on to me. That's why assimilation was something, I think, for me and my husband, is we wanted to assimilate. We wanted just to say, you know what, we're bringing our kids, we're moving to an area where there's not a lot of natives and there's more opportunity. But in that, did we give up some of our sense of self, that uniqueness that, we were supposed to pass on? And it's simply how we dress. I wear these earrings because it makes me proud of the art and the talent of Native people. I wear my hair long now to represent the beautifulness of our people, where I always had short hair. Yeah. And I wonder, and my daughter has long hair, and just the simple things like that. I'm like, because I thought short hair was more professional, and it looked, it presented, maybe I was more, professional, intelligent in some kind of way. I know that sounds weird, but now in the simple things, I feel that I can wear my hair long. And like I said, I'm 54, and growing up where I wasn't appreciated, and it was frowned to be Native. It really was. I experienced that. It was frowned to be Native. We were considered, at least how I felt, ignorant people.
I'm so sorry.
That we weren't equal. We didn't have, the equal intelligence as a lot of more mainstream culture. Yeah. See, you have tears in your eyes.
I do.
Oh
No. That's it's heartbreaking.
I know.
For sure.
Yeah.
But it's also just getting this opportunity to speak with you and to hear about the progression that's happening, and just to sit with you and hear about how you've come into your own identity more
at 54
and confident. I love it.
I'm like, oh my God,
Kimberly, seriously, that's so beautiful. You're never too young or old to walk into who you are and confidence.
And that's so true. And I want to say this, like my daughter. I mean, she's at 18, and I can see her really taking more effort to learn more of her culture. And because I think, like I said, that assimilation was something, we just walked into. And I think now she's like, wow, I love my dark skin. I love my beautiful, my olive complexion, my hair, and she's even participating more they've asked in her school to talk more about the culture and diversity. So I see people encouraging who are not of color, saying, come on, we want to hear it. We want to hear more of it. We want to. So I love that, and I want to acknowledge it, and thank you for your tears, because when we look at someone in their eyes, we can see the soul of who they are, and so the tears represent your loving heart and your compassion, and I know more of who you are through your eyes and your tears.
Oh, thank you. I know I want to respect and honor your time. Is there anything else that you would like to share with us? A story, an experience, anything on your heart before we finish?
Wow, this is kind of therapeutic. This is like, I'm like, wow, I didn't know I was coming into such a session. I think you really, and I hope that our future really consists of people coming together of many different colors and sitting down at the table and listening to stories and not really apologies are great. Like I know a lot of my friends have said, I'm so sorry that, that you went through that. And I love that. I really do. But at the same time, I think if we start working together and saying, okay, we're sitting down at the table, I want to hear your story. I want to see how has things impacted you, and just listening, really just listening, and not putting any judgment on a story.
Yeah.
Because we don't really have to, I don't know, it's not so much trying to make up for what we went through. Like I think a lot of my white friends, what can I do to make up for that? Or what can I feel so bad. So I would never want to put shame on anyone else, because that's what creates more pain and dysfunction in our world. It's just to sit down and listen and come alongside and say, gosh, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. And I want to do better. I want to do better. And moving forward, I want to be a better person individually.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what it's about. How can I listen to people's stories, and what can I take from that story and be a better person? All around. How can I love people more? And I know that I can do a better job of that. Because I've found myself, I think what I do want to share is there was a lot of bitterness and anger came out of me during COVID because of some of the past experiences being a person of color. And I found myself even being angry towards even some friends. But I had to come clean to say that I have felt this way when I've been in a room where I'm the only one. I felt inferior. I felt inferior. I have felt less than. But that doesn't mean that you've made me feel that way. I come into the room feeling that way. And that is my job, to work on that and gain a sense of self-awareness and perspective. And my pain, I don't want to project that onto you. I don't want to project my pain onto you. I want to be able to recognize that, care for that, have compassion for myself, understand where that came from. How do I heal that which is Jesus for me, and having conversations with God, and really being able to process that with Him, and learning that, gosh, I'm so valuable because He created us. He created us in this diversity, and how do we come together and sit down and use that for good? Use that for good. Yeah.
Ooh, such wise words.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me to be a part of this. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you,
and
girl.
I'm so honored to hear and listen to your story, and you've inspired me to do better. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.